So why did Kane Parsons, a Gen Z artist, choose the NeverEnding story to be the only pop culture reference in the Backrooms movie? Let's talk about it. I've already referenced the NeverEnding story in part 3 of this series on Mythemes of the Backrooms if you want to go back and watch it, but this is going to be a little bit more of a deeper dive. In the Backrooms film, we see Dr. Phil the researcher at home with his family watching the NeverEnding story. The Backrooms is literally a never-ending story. It is iterating and or unforgetting reality in all directions, on all axes, from reality down to abstraction, and as I posit, from reality into hyperreality, and as we know from the source material, across time. And I'm going to talk about the villain in the never-ending story, which is called the Nothing, and his servant Gamork. Now, I'm going to make a very educated assumption here that he chose it because the villain, the Nothing, is representative of the void, very specifically the emptiness that occurs in reality when humans forget how to dream, lose hope, and despair takes over. And once we've lost hope, much like Clark in Backrooms, we will begin to accept the void. Gamork literally tells Bastian that when people lose hope and begin to despair, they are easier to control. And whoever is in control of that despair has the power. This movie came out in 1984. It is more prescient now than ever. Regardless of if you're a boomer or you're Gen Alpha, the last 5 years, and even more specifically since October 7th, we have been inundated with nothing but despair. And what is the greatest weapon the enemy has against us? It's despair, because it forces us to lose hope. We all understand despair under the context of late-stage capitalism and the decline and fall of the American empire. And as I mentioned in part 1 of this series, this is articulated beautifully by Clark watching the infomercial of his competitor and then making an infomercial for himself, as well as Mary watching her own infomercial of her self-help cassettes, not earning her any money as she sits on her couch in despair behind a TV tray. The reason why, from a depth psychological, from a Jungian archetypal psychological perspective, the Nothing as a villain is so brilliant is because you can project anything onto it. By no means is Kane Parsons the first person to use speculative fiction to explore despair. Now, to what degree Kane is conscious of the way his mythology is articulating a very specific despair that belongs to and is owned by Gen Z and Gen Alpha is irrelevant, because his subconscious has tapped into it. So it is poignant that this film and this lore and mythology has been created by a Gen Zer. Parsons' particular mythos around Backrooms mirrors what another creator on this app recently articulated, NB Therapist, I will tag them, where they said, and I need you to lock in and really sit with this, that it is more dangerous for our psyches, regardless of if we're boomers or Gen Z, it is more dangerous for our psyches to be unable to imagine any future than it is to be able to imagine a bad future. Okay. If we can no longer dream of something, if we can no longer imagine into a future for ourselves, if we can no longer imagine a world at all versus a shitty version of all of the above, that's the void. That's the Nothing. That's Clark in Backrooms. It's resignation. That's annihilation. That's endgame. Of human history is an exercise in history being doomed to repeat itself because we failed to learn from our previous mistakes and our personal heroes' journeys. We are all, like Clark, doomed to repeat and stay trapped in our self-sabotaging loops, our own never-ending stories, because we are unable or unwilling to find a window, to find an escape find hope, to find a way out and away from the nothing. They are unforgetting. They are trying to remember a memory of a memory of a memory of a memory, right? From psyches that have already forgotten how to dream, that have already forgotten how to hope, that have already forgotten how to imagine. That is why the backrooms are so fucking scary. And that is the never ending story.